Hello, in this video we'll be looking into how to write down the chemical formulae of a compound. So chemical formula, what do we mean by the word chemical formula? Chemical formula is a shorthand method for representing any substance. It will tell you the elements that are present inside a compound, and it will also tell you how many atoms of each element are in one molecule. There are different types of chemical compounds, so we will look into how to write down the formula of each of these compounds. So the first in series is an ionic compound. Ionic compounds are those that are made up of positive and negative ions, and when they join together, they join with a very strong force of attraction that's electrostatic, and they form a giant crystal lattice. And that's the structure of an ionic compound. When you look at the ionic compounds, because they're made up of ions, just like you've got your first name followed by your surname, same way, an ionic compound's first name is always the positive ion, and the surname is always the negative ion. So if I said the name sodium chloride, sodium is its first name, which is positive ion, and the chloride is the surname of the ionic compound, and that is its negative ion. So you got positive ion and negative ion. Now, these ions you'll have to memorize. So let's take a look at some of the ions here. So you've got positive ions. You've got some of them are single positive, some of them are 2+ charge, and some of them are 3+ charge. In order to help you memorize it, you'll have to refer to the periodic table. The periodic table has got groups of elements in them. So this is group 1, group 2. The rule of thumb is for metals, we'll just focus on metals for positive ions, because positive ions form metals. You've got group 1 will always form 1+ charge. So they will all have single positive. Group 2 will have 2+ charge. So you will get 2+ positive ion. So here you go, lithium, sodium, potassium, 1+, because they're group 1. You've got magnesium, calcium, barium, group 2, and you've got aluminium here, which is group 3. So those are easy to learn. The elements in between are your transition elements. Transition elements show variable oxidation state. That means they will have different charges. So like copper can have Cu single plus, or it will have Cu2 plus. And to make it easy, the name will always have the charge written in Roman numeral. So Cu copper 1 is indicative that it has 1+ charge. Copper 2 here shows that it's got 2 positive charge. Same way you will have iron 2 and iron 3. So iron 2 will have Fe2 plus, and iron 3 will have Fe3 plus. You've got ammonium ion here. Now ammonium ion is a polyatomic ion. So you would have noticed that it is a positive ion in this series. That's the only one that's got 2 different elements in it. So you've got nitrogen and hydrogen. Now the common thing to remember in polyatomic ion is that if you've got more than one of those, you would use a bracket. So I would write NH4 whole twice SO4. You wouldn't put a bracket around something which is made up of one element only. So if I had Na2SO4, I wouldn't put a bracket around sodium, because that's only made up of one element. So anything that's made up of more than one element would need to have a bracket around it. So that's all about positive ions. So some of them you will have to learn. So ammonium, I would recommend you memorize. Silver you would need to memorize. Zinc you would need to memorize, but the rest you can figure out by using the periodic table or by looking at the name itself, like copper 1, copper 2. Some of the negative ions you can figure out by looking at the periodic table here. So this is group 1 on this side. So these groups here are all metals, but on this side you've got non-metals. Non-metals, group 7, would need one more electron, so it needs 1 electrons to become 8. So these are 1 negative. So F minus, Cl minus, Br minus. So you've got group 7 here, which is 1 negative. Group 6 will gain 2 electrons to become 8 electrons in their last shell. So it's got O2 minus, sulfide, and then nitride here, so you've got group 5 here. Group 5 will gain 3 electrons to become 8. So this is 3 negative, N3 minus, phosphide would be P3 minus. Some of the other names or the other ions you will have to learn. There's no other way around it. So this one at the bottom, which you can't see, is phosphate. So that's PO4 3 minus. So these are the ions that you'll have to memorize. Now, how to write down the formula of an ionic compound? There are certain rules. I'll show you 2 rules and you can then pick the one that works for you. The first one is by balancing the charges. So I'll go through the steps. Now you know the name, your first name followed by your surname, positive ion, negative. So the first thing is you decode and you write down the formula of the ions. The copper 2 indicates 2 plus, chloride is group 7, so it needs 1 more electron to become 8, so 1 minus. Now what you have to do is you have to balance the charges. Copper has got 2 plus, and you've got to balance the charges till they neutralize. So that means that charge is balanced, but this copper has still got an extra plus charge, which is not balanced by the negative. So I would need another negative to balance it out. So that means I've got 1 copper and 2 Cl, and that would balance out the charges. So formula is CuCl2. Let's try another example. You could pause the video here and try it out. And if you have paused the video and come back to look at the answer, here goes. So again, first name, second name, you've decoded that. We know this is a polyatomic ion, so that's 1 that's got 2 negative neutralized charges. So we need another positive here. That means I need another NH4 plus. As we said before, it's polyatomic ion. So when I write NH4 2 times, we would need to use a bracket. So you've got NH4 whole twice S. So well done if you've got the correct answer. If not, then do learn from your mistakes. It's always good to practice and make mistakes because you will get stronger that way. The second method I'm going to show you, if this method doesn't work for you, is the swap and drop. So if I have to write down the formula of magnesium oxide, so I've got magnesium is group 2, oxide is group 6. Both of them have got either 2 plus or 2 minus. I'm just going to focus on the number, and I'm going to bring the number on top of oxygen on this side, and the magnesium number goes and drops on the other side. So I'm swapping the numbers and I'm dropping them down. So the numbers are at the bottom. Now in chemical formulae, we always simplify. You have to simplify the formula. So Mg2O2 can be simplified to MgO. Let's try sodium oxide. You could pause the video and try it yourself. So to group 1, group 6, swap and drop. So that's 1. So sodium will get the number on top of oxygen. I've dropped it to the bottom. In chemical formulae, we do not write the number 1. So the formula becomes sodium oxide. Aluminium oxide, aluminium group 3. So 3 plus. Oxygen group 6, 2 minus. Swap and drop the charge. So aluminium will get the charge 2 at the bottom. Oxygen will get the charge 3 at the bottom. So the formula is now Al2O2. SO3. So that's how you write down the formula of ionic compounds. Two methods. Use any of the two methods to figure out the formula of these compounds. So you can pause the video, try it out, and then come and watch the rest to see the answers of these questions and also to figure out how to write down the formula of covalent compounds. You can pause the video again and check your answers. And well done for trying these questions out. Now we look into how to write down the formula for a covalent compound. The only way is a lot of it you would need to learn. So best to remember then. Diatomic elements, extremely important you memorize them. The reason I say important is if I gave you an equation to balance and I gave you a word equation and I said write down the formula of hydrogen and oxygen, the likelihood is people tend to write this. You've got to understand that hydrogen exists as H2, oxygen exists as O2. So you'll have to figure this out. You'll have to learn that. Polyatomic elements, some elements exist as P4, like phosphorus P4, sulfur S8. So you learn that mostly sulfur is shown as S as well. So that's okay. Mineral acids, very important to learn. You cannot do neutralization reactions without memorizing them. Some you would have to memorize, so you can figure out by the name. So sulfur dioxide, so indicates SO2. Sulfur trioxide, you can figure out 1 sulfur and 3 oxygen. Some formula you have to memorize. Water is H2O. There's no way you can figure out by the name. So we've already looked at the binary compounds of nonmetals. How do we write down the formula for metals? So if I had sodium, if I said sodium reacts with oxygen to form sodium oxide. So if you're asked to write down the formula, you know, sodium is a metal, so now you would write oxygen, you know, it's not O, it's O2. And now you've studied enough here to figure out sodium oxide. Now you wouldn't join them to write sodium oxygen, you would write oxide because it's formed a compound. And I will be creating another video on group 1 chemistry and you will be able to see how this reaction occurs. So sodium oxide, we know this one is positive, the second name is negative. So negative ion group 6 is that swap and drop or balance charges, you will get the formula as Na2O. So I will also be explaining about how to balance equation in my next video. So far we've just done that, and I'll also show you how to write down the state symbols. So that's what we've studied so far today. We've looked into how to write down the formula of ionic compounds, 2 methods. You can balance charge method, or you can do swap and drop method. Either way, you have to learn the ions. You've got to learn the formula of ions. Covalent compounds, you will just have to learn some of them, or you can figure out by the names. Yeah, and then the metals, you write just the symbol. So thank you for watching this video, and I hope you are now able to understand this very important topic about how to write down chemical formulae. So writing chemical formulae is similar to, in English language, writing words. You've learned the alphabet and now you're writing the words. So it's very important to understand this video thoroughly before you try the next one on balancing equation. You cannot balance equation till you know how to write down the formula. So thank you for listening and watching. Thank you.